Our policy is one which is called by an Afrikaans word apartheid. And I'm afraid that has been misunderstood so often. It could just as easily, and perhaps much better, be described as a policy of good neighborliness, accepting that there are differences between people.
My name is Mazibu, identified as a black queer woman.
My name is Ismina Jesham. I'm currently a third-year law student at Wits University. I identify as an Indian woman.
Salim Valley. I work at the University of Johannesburg.
Saruti. I am a white person in South African terms. I'm a woman, born a woman. I can't identify so much as one except in an anti-oppression sense.
This is a social construct. But there's no such thing. No scientist or geneticist will say that we have distinct races. I might have Indian ancestry, but I don't see myself as Indian. I'm not a citizen of India. I'm a South African. These were terms that the apartheid government decided on. We reject those terms because they're divisive. Diversity should be our strength, and that shouldn't be just a slogan. We shouldn't reproduce the divisions we have been bequeathed with. Biological race is not real, but racism is real. The term black was a political term which explained our oppression. Whiteness is also a way of being. This is a term that was used because this feeling of superiority. Black Lives Matter is a movement that deals with a particular racism and a reaction to those who see themselves as superior. Far from rejecting that as an instance of reverse racism, it is a very powerful form of resistance. Of course, we all agree that all lives matter, but they miss the point. The people who are suffering the most under racism are black people.
Racism for me is when you prejudice against somebody because of the color of their skin, and prejudice further impacts them economically.
Confronted with racism from an early age. I grew up in Newtown in the 60s. That time the Group Areas Act was well on its way to disrupt communities. The support networks, the social cohesion of the place was being torn apart. People were, in some cases, forcibly removed. That was my first encounter. My father's conversations with his sibling. He used to work in a company which was quite a long distance away, and he used to always come back in a bad mood because of his encounters at work. And he talked about racism, the white bosses he had. Then finally was when I was in high school. That was the Soweto uprising, or the 76 uprising. I joined SARZIM, the Soweto Students Representative Council, and others were part of. We got together as young people. That was formative because under apartheid, school you went to, where you could live, was determined by what the apartheid government determined to be your race group. So when I met these young people from different black townships, all the myths, the stereotypes, the caricatures dissolved. At that time it was really revolutionary. The system went out of its way to prevent people from getting to know each other. Those three broad issues come to mind in terms of my personal connection with racism in South Africa.
I should probably stop thinking of race in this kind of bifurcated way, because the two really inform each other. The one is kind of the racist sentiment that people have, so like the kind of thing we saw in that video of Adam. So it's a kind of individual prejudice, and then separately the broader kind of institutional racism, like apartheid, segregation, racism that leads people to lead divergent lifestyles on the basis of the color of their skin. People 100% still do not view black people as human beings.
Amazing to see, and not one inside.
The Human Rights Commission is investigating Adam Katsavelos' racist rant after he posted a holiday video online using racial slurs.
You're second-guessing yourself as a black woman because historically, like, you've been told that you're not good enough. I will sit in a classroom and think about, whoa, I'm amongst one of 3 black women in this classroom. Internalize that belief, and it haunts you, like it pulls you back in terms of like succeeding.
On institutional level, nothing has been done to undo the structural racism of apartheid. There was no answering for structural apartheid. We still have apartheid spatial planning. Our cities are very much divided on the basis of race. People say that that has even been entrenched further in the post-apartheid era.
My experiences growing up under apartheid would be radically different from generally white South Africa.
The fact that I was able to get into Wits University at all, a big part of the reason for that was because I got to stand in the short queue, which was the queue for white people. And we were 90% of the people at Wits, whereas any black person had to join a long queue for only 10% of the places. So the opposite of discrimination.
Being a black woman, you're like automatically viewed at the bottom of the hierarchy.
As black women, we also see black men as people who also perpetuate oppression against us. We don't feel safe. We don't have as many opportunities, also because of patriarchy in our own homes.
If you don't, who's going to?
Responsibility falls on everyone.
Can't really trust that anyone else will. Reality that if you face in the problem, you need to do something about it.
It was incumbent on all black people, or most black people, to resist.
Black Panthers took it upon themselves to assert economic, social, and political power for themselves because they felt like governments that benefit from things like institutionalized racism aren't going to help them. It's more worthwhile if black people take it upon themselves to assert the power that they want to see.
But a fair number of white people did as well.
But at the same time, it shouldn't be that difficult for people in power to reach out and help those who are still experiencing institutionalized racism.
It's necessary for all of us, regardless of how we're classified and how we see ourselves today, to fight against racism. And we're certainly not creating this new society if we are not collectively involved in the struggle against racism. Those who benefit from racism also are in a sense oppressed. They are oppressed by their own ignorance, own insecurities, by their own fears. Therefore, it's vital that all of us fight racism.
So privilege would basically be getting more than what the average person would get.
During the fees must fall, some of the students said, white students, please stand in front. Many white students volunteered to do that. That was quite powerful. It also shows an understanding of privilege, right, in the society.
My culture has not interacted with privilege at all. Very privileged community, and become even more so in the post-apartheid period.
White people who are not privileged in class terms get privilege in terms of skin color. You've got to be quite a rough-looking white person before someone follows you around the shop, make sure that you're not stealing things. So that's a very small example. Just assume that even questions it. As white people living in extreme poverty are oppressed in class terms, right? Even that person gets treated a little bit differently in society just because they read as white. Truly privileged white is the one who can act middle class and when they're not, right? So privilege is also intersectional. Get a different kind of privilege from being a working class white from what you get being a middle class white man.
You're privileged if you're in a position where you have generational wealth, if you have no money problems, you have better opportunity, if you have no worries about whether you can further your studies or not, if you can get a job without even going to study, your skin color can get you far.
Just like I can get away with things that if I wasn't white, people would just perceive it completely differently.
The income of an Indian household has increased by something like 500% between 94 and 2014. Something we don't think about at all. When someone like Julius Malema says Indians are racist, we don't engage with that on any critical level. We immediately become defensive. Sure, we South African Indian Muslims were part of the anti-apartheid struggle, but democracy came, what did we do? We kind of retreated into the privilege that we then found ourselves in. We've done nothing since. I think it's something that we just don't address, and then when it comes up we just quickly want to stifle it. Within the Muslim community, I think that within religious spaces, so in the mosque space for example, women have been sent to the fringes. In the majority of mosques in Johannesburg at least, there simply isn't space for Muslim women. We've seen the violence enacted on women when we try to tackle those injustices in the mosque space at least. It's just a man like imposing his masculinity on a woman in that way, screaming and shouting and saying like, get out of this place that should be a home to every Muslim.
Zulu culture, wealth was primarily interpreted by cows. The more cows you had, the more respected you are in the community. You are more exposed to opportunities if you're a man than you would if you are a girl. Each struggle is connected to every marginalized person. It must fall, for example. Our insistence that struggle must be an intersectional struggle. High fees affect all of us. It's important that every person who is marginalized feels included in our fights. This is not just a money issue, it's about access to every individual.
My experience here at a university from 85 onwards. On student circles there was a lot of talking about uniting different struggles against oppression, or saying that in the struggle against apartheid we've also got to think about women's struggles. It was a struggle within the struggle. There were also very contradictory ways that people were doing that. Right? Winnie Mandela came to speak at Wits, said, as mothers, we women need to. I was thinking, but I'm a woman and I'm not a mother, so what about us? The fact that women were getting involved on any basis then opened the door for them to start saying, but hang on, issues were brought in during apartheid, ended up being much more of saying, let's bring these issues into the struggle, rather than saying, let's have a separate struggle. Plenty of examples of people also experiencing huge sexism within the movement, right? So it wasn't all rosy by any means. But
racism is not an easy thing to talk about. We're so good with hashtags and marches. Seldom ever do we take action.
It should be an active effort to listen to each other. Relax in certain activist spaces. People prioritize certain struggles over others. Put that kind of thinking aside and to make a concerted effort to listen to the struggles of others is at least step one. Given my position of privilege, I haven't had to think about safe spaces as often as I perhaps should. I feel comfortable and okay to exist in most of the spaces I find myself in.
Safe spaces are important. They break down the wall of fear that comes with talking about uncomfortable topics. They allow us to be able to adequately confront uncomfortable topics.
There was a context. I belonged to the Black consciousness movement in the 70s and 80s. Many of our comrades were white people. We didn't allow white people to join our organizations. They were in meetings. Those were tactical issues. It had much more force in those days. Today, if we have a public meeting, exclude white people, I think that is excluding people because of the changes, because there are some black people who are privileged as well. But I think there are certain contexts where, I can understand, I might not fully agree.
The rainbowist narrative that we're taught in class, that's a long time. Racism was a long time ago.
We are slacking. Most of our country's economic wealth is in the hands of a white minority.
The government that was inherited by the ANC government, we had to pay off apartheid. We had to pay the debt of ventures that we weren't allowed to sit on, of educations that we didn't receive.
South Africa is still a very unequal country. Access to wealth, to basic needs, to schooling, land. This is a direct consequence of apartheid that's still there. Nothing has changed. They're still living in this exact same manner that they were living in.
As much as the RDP program had failed in a lot of ways, it's made a significant difference in certain people's lives.
It's been an effort. Whether it's sufficient, I don't think so.
We haven't addressed inequality or poverty or violence against women. Not enough has been done. 2 families own over 50% of the wealth of this country. We haven't done enough. People feel alienated and insecure, that all of us live behind high walls.
You cannot have political freedom without economic freedom. And only when we achieve economic freedom will everything really fall into place, I think.
And I was growing up, the ANC was in power.
Currently still in power.
Thabo Mbeki was in power from 1999 to 2009. And Jacob Zuma succeeded him until February in 2018.
Cyril Ramaphosa is the president of the ANC, and he's currently serving his term.
Professor Valley's beliefs regarding the fact that race should not be used as a benchmark for quotas. We as South Africans need to focus on the other aspects that form part of our identities, such as gender and class.
The government in power espouses views that are non-racial and are supposed to be working towards equity within the South African socio-economic sphere. The way that their work has been implemented in the past 24 years, I don't think that has lived up to those beliefs. We see this on a structural level. Reasons for what the government has commodified education. We see it in private healthcare, the state of public institutions, public schools, public health services. On that level, government isn't necessarily doing enough to tackle things like institutionalized racism. The government definitely needs to do more in regards to that.
Racism definitely exists within the Indian Muslim community.
Our families, our friends, makeup community
isn't very blatant, as in small subtleties. When a black person walks past an Indian household, then the Indian people within that household automatically assume that that person is just up to no good.
I can positively say that the anti-blackness within the community is very relevant and very apparent.
Whiteness is often praised and blackness is rejected.
It's like patriarchy and racism is something cultivated in most homes.
It's seen in the Indian community, my religious community, which is the Muslim community, and even among some of my peers at school, which I even consider friends.
We must acknowledge, especially from younger generations, there is this sort of consciousness being cultivated, helping us like acknowledge injustices that we face, that we put onto other people.
Racist beliefs lead to racist attitudes, which is then reflected in the way people treat other people, specifically people of other races.
Historically, racist and patriarchal beliefs have created or have resulted in oppressive structures. We see that patriarchal views have influenced the way that women are allowed into spaces like mosques. But at the same time, we can't forget that the beliefs opposing those oppressive structures have a large influence on creating a better society. There is still a change that's being created. Movements like Fees Must Fall and the Pretoria Girls High protests. What's important is those conversations that come out of those movements. It was one institution that reacted to it and that had a ripple effect on the institutions around the country. Our school, we changed our school rules that were oppressive. Our beliefs against oppressive structures are extremely vital in order to attain a tangible change. Given my economic status, I'm Indian, racial privilege,
I have personally not been restricted or harmed by any perceptions.
I come from a family that can comfortably afford for access to healthcare and education that is one that is like resourced. That's definitely something that has prevented me from being restricted. My religion, attending a school that still is built on neo-colonialism, Christianity is prioritized. Teachers continue doing work on religious holidays, days like Christmas and Easter, have holidays for that. So that's something that has affected me.
I don't think I do nearly enough to resist harmful racist beliefs.
In our own capacity, call out the people within your community.
Treating all people equally regardless of their race.
Stop it at the roots. That's the first step to eradicating it on a systematic level. Having conversations with people, it's going to require having those uncomfortable conversations, the ones that we like to avoid. As you advocate for your own struggles, the same for other people's struggles.
Make an effort to hold myself accountable for ideas and beliefs which may be harmful and hurtful towards other people. Consciousness is not a linear concept. It's a journey that we can't embark on without respecting other people, respecting their experiences.
Acknowledging that struggles are connected, acknowledging that class intersects with race, intersects with the gender that you choose to identify as. We choose to separate those struggles. We are never going to achieve a society that is non-racial and non-sexist.
And accepting that diversity is a strength.